Your father never talked about money. Not because he did not have opinions, not because he did not care, but because money, in the house he grew up in, was the kind of topic that lived in the walls, felt in the tension at the dinner table, heard in the conversations that stopped the moment you walked into the room. And yet, that same man has more saved today than anyone in your friend group combined. Never touched his emergency fund, never carried a credit card balance, never missed a mortgage payment. Not once in 30 years. So what do they know that we do not? What happened to this generation that made them handle money in a way that confuses everyone around them and quietly built more wealth than any generation before them? Today, we go inside the psychology, and what we find will completely change how you think about your own relationship with money. Here is what we are covering today. We are going inside the psychology of Generation X, the generation born between 1965 and 1980, and we are going to understand exactly why they think about money the way they do. We are going to look at the specific historical moments that shaped their financial brain, the exact psychological patterns that drive their seemingly contradictory money behaviors, the data behind why they are simultaneously the most financially anxious and the most financially prepared generation alive today, what young professionals in their 20s and 30s can learn from their psychology right now, and the one lesson embedded in every Gen X money habit that the wealth operating system is built on. This is not a generational comparison video. This is a psychology deep dive, because understanding why people make the money decisions they make is the first step to making better ones yourself. Stay with me. My name is Zishan, and welcome to the Wealth Operating System, where we treat personal finance like an engineering problem. Today, we are debugging a generation. Let us get into it.
Chapter 1. The World That Built Them. To understand Gen X money psychology, you have to go back, not to their adulthood, to their childhood. Picture this. It is 1979. You are 8 years old. Your father works at the same company he has worked at for 11 years. Same desk, same colleagues, same steady paycheck arriving every 2 weeks like clockwork. He has a pension, a real pension that the company funds automatically. He has a savings account that pays 5%, 6%, sometimes 8% interest per year. The mortgage will be paid off in 14 years exactly. Everything makes sense. The formula is clear. Work hard, stay loyal, save money, retire comfortably. The formula works. You absorb it the way children absorb everything, without knowing you were absorbing it, through observation, through the absence of financial anxiety at the dinner table, through the quiet confidence of a household where the numbers add up. You grow up believing the system is reliable, because for the first 15 years of your life, it was. And then, everything changes. It is 1990. You are 19, maybe 21. You graduate into a recession. Not a mild slowdown, a real recession. Unemployment climbing, companies downsizing, the first wave of loyalty being shattered. People who worked somewhere for 20 years escorted to the door with a cardboard box and a form letter. You watch it happen to people you know. People who followed the formula. People who did everything right. And something shifts in your understanding of how the world works. The system, you begin to suspect, is not as reliable as your childhood suggested. But the worst is still coming. Chapter 2. The Moment That Broke Everything. It is 2008. You are 35, maybe 40. You followed the formula. You stayed loyal to your employer for years. You bought the house. You funded the 401k every month. You did exactly what the financial system told you to do. And then, in a matter of weeks, your 401k loses 40% of its value. Your house, the one you bought at the peak, loses $80,000 in paper value. Colleagues who have been at your company for 20 years? Gone. No warning, no severance, just gone. The formula, the one your childhood taught you to trust, was a lie. Not a small lie, a foundational one. And that betrayal, that specific 2008 betrayal, did something to Gen X that no other generation experienced in quite the same way. It did not make them give up. It made them paranoid. Productively, strategically, permanently paranoid. The 2023 Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies found something fascinating. 70% of Gen X report being terrified about retirement. More anxious than boomers, more anxious than millennials, more anxious than any other generation surveyed. And yet, they have the second highest 401k contribution rates of any generation. Read that again. They are the most scared and the most prepared, simultaneously. Psychologists call this defensive pessimism. You assume the worst, you prepare for the worst, and then, when the worst arrives, you are covered.
Chapter 3. The side hustle they invented. Here is something that gets lost in the cultural conversation about side hustles. Millennials popularized the term. Gen X invented the behavior. Federal Reserve data shows Gen X has higher rates of self-employment and secondary income streams than both boomers and millennials. But here is the critical distinction that most people miss. They did not build side hustles because they wanted to quit their jobs. They built them because they watched their colleague get walked out with a cardboard box after 20 years of loyalty. And they decided, never again. Never again will my entire financial survival depend on one company's decision. It is 1995. You are watching your mother's employer downsize. People who have worked there since before you were born, suddenly unemployed at 52. No warning, no safety net, just a meeting with HR and a parking lot moment that changes everything. That image burned itself into an entire generation's financial brain. Never depend on one source of income. Not because they are entrepreneurial, not because they dream of freedom, because they are terrified. And that is why the Gen X neighbor has the consulting work on the side, the small rental property, the freelance project, the investment account they fund separately from the 401k. It is not ambition. It is insurance. And it is one of the most financially intelligent behaviors any generation has ever developed, for exactly the wrong emotional reasons. The wealth operating system principle is built on this exact insight. Multiple income streams are not a luxury. They are a necessity in a world where no single employee, no single system can be fully trusted.
Chapter 4. The contradictions that make perfect sense. Gen X money psychology is full of apparent contradictions, and every single one of them makes complete sense once you understand the psychology driving them. Contradiction 1. They distrust institutions but are intensely loyal to brands. An Adobe study found Gen Xers are 34% more likely than millennials to stick with brands from their youth, even when cheaper alternatives exist. They will quit a Fortune 500 company via email without a second thought, but they will drive across town for the coffee shop where the owner knows their name and their order. Zero loyalty to institutions, intense loyalty to people and products they trust. The psychology is completely logical. Institutions betrayed them. Corporations handed them form letters and severance packages. Banks crashed their retirement accounts and their home values in the same year. But the coffee shop owner, the brand they have used since 1994, those things did not lie to them. Trust is not gone from Gen X. It just moved from institutions to individuals, from systems to relationships. Contradiction 2. They save obsessively and spend extravagantly on experiences. Eventbrite data found Gen Xers spend approximately $3,000 per year on concerts, travel, and live events, more than any other generation in actual dollar terms. At the same time, they maintain emergency funds, high savings rates, and consistent investment contributions. Financially paranoid and experientially extravagant simultaneously. And again, the same psychology drives both behaviors. They save obsessively because financial systems cannot be trusted. They spend on experiences because material things cannot be trusted either. Your house can go underwater. Your car depreciates the moment you drive it. Your possessions mean nothing when the economy crashes. But the concert you attended in 1996, the trip you took with your family, the dinner that became a story you still tell 20 years later, nobody can repossess a memory. The market cannot crash a lived experience. Gen X figured out through painful economic experience that in an unstable world, experiences deliver better return on investment than things. It is not contradiction. It is wisdom that arrived through loss.
Contradiction 3.
They carry the highest total debt, but manage it most strategically. Experian data confirms Gen X carries the highest total debt of any generation, but they are also the most strategic about which debt they carry. They will take a $400,000 mortgage without hesitation. They will refuse to carry a $2,000 credit card balance. The difference is control. A mortgage is structured, fixed payment, clear timeline. You know exactly what you are dealing with on every day of the loan. Credit card debt is chaos. Minimum payments, variable rates, compounding interest that grows whether you are paying attention or not. University of Michigan research found Gen X witnessed unprecedented consumer debt destroy families in the 1980s and 1990s, and then watched the same patterns amplify the 2008 crash. The lesson they absorbed was not never borrow. It was only borrow what you can map to completion. Debt for appreciating assets, real estate, business investments, strategic leverage, calculated and controlled. Debt for consumption, couches, vacations, lifestyle maintenance on a credit card, the debt that kills you slowly, never. Chapter 5, The Self-Education Generation. Here is something that explains Gen X's relationship with financial advice. They are the least likely generation to use traditional financial advisors. Cerulli Associates data confirms it. They research independently. They build their own spreadsheets. They manage their own portfolios. And simultaneously, they are the most anxious about whether they are doing it right. They do not want help, but they are terrified of making mistakes. The psychology here traces back to something specific. Gen X came of age at the exact moment when self-education became genuinely possible. They are the last generation that learned to learn from books before the internet. They built the internet and then used it to teach themselves everything the financial industry did not want them to know. But they also watched what happened when their parents trusted experts with their pensions. They watched those experts fail them, sometimes through incompetence, sometimes through outright betrayal. And so they developed a financial philosophy that is unique to their generation. Educate yourself thoroughly. Verify everything independently. Trust no advice without doing your own homework first. It is not arrogance, it is self-defense. And it is a philosophy that the young professionals of today, the millennials and Gen Z watching this video, would be wise to adopt as their own. Because the financial industry has not become more trustworthy since 2008. It has just become better at marketing.
Chapter 6, The Lesson Inside the Psychology. Now, here is what all of this means for you. If you are in your 20s or 30s watching this video, you did not live through 1979. You did not watch the 2008 crash from inside a 401k that had 20 years of contributions in it. You were shaped by different economic trauma. The student loan crisis, the housing affordability collapse, the gig economy replacing stable employment, the pandemic restructuring of everything. Different events, same fundamental lesson. The system, whatever system you are operating inside, was not designed with your wealth as the primary objective. It was designed with its own survival as the primary objective. And the people who build real wealth in every generation are the ones who understand this clearly and build systems of their own that run parallel to the official one. Gen X built side hustles because they were terrified and accidentally created financial resilience. They avoided consumer debt because they watched it destroy people and accidentally became the most strategically debt-managed generation. They saved obsessively despite believing it would not work and accidentally built the second highest retirement contribution rates of any generation. The lesson is not to be terrified. The lesson is to build the system anyway. Not because you trust the economy, not because you believe everything will work out, but because the alternative, doing nothing, has consequences that compound just as powerfully as interest. The people who will retire wealthy in your generation, the young professionals in the USA, UK, and Europe watching this right now, will not be the ones who trusted the system most. They will be the ones who built their own. So here is what Gen X money psychology really tells us. They are not confused. They are not contradictory. They are not stuck in the past. They are adapted. Specifically, painfully, intelligently adapted to an economy that promised them one thing and delivered another. They save obsessively because systems fail. They maintain multiple income streams because single employers cannot be trusted. They avoid consumer debt because they watched it compound into catastrophe. They spend on experiences because material things disappear, but memories do not. They educate themselves because experts failed the people they loved. Every behavior that looks strange from the outside makes complete sense from the inside. And here is what I want you to take from this video. You do not need to live through a recession to learn what Gen X learned. You do not need to watch your 401k cut in half to understand why building multiple income streams matters. You do not need to carry a credit card balance into a financial crisis to understand why consumer debt is dangerous. You can learn it here, from their psychology, from their data, from the patterns of a generation that got burned and built something fireproof in response. The wealth operating system is built on exactly this foundation. Debug the system that was handed to you, install one that actually works for you. Now, I want to ask you one question. Which Gen X money habit do you already have without ever consciously deciding to develop it? Drop it in the comments, because your answer tells me more about your financial psychology than any budget spreadsheet ever could. And if this video changed how you think about money psychology, please subscribe, because every single week we are going deeper into the psychology, the data, and the systems behind building real wealth for young professionals in the USA, UK, and Europe who refuse to wait for a crisis to start taking their financial future seriously. My name is Zishan. This has been the Wealth Operating System, and I will see you in the next upgrade.